IVM. If you like listening to the Paodcast, check out Geek Fruit. Hosted by Uber geeks Tejas Menon and Jishnu Guha, this show talks about geek culture from an Indian perspective. Star Wars, comic books, science fiction and fantasy, TV shows, and more.
You're listening to the Paodcast, presented by the Daily Pao.
This is Pranati.
And Amit.
And we're from the Daily Pao, a Bombay-specific food and culture platform, and this is our weekly podcast, the Paodcast. Now, this episode is an installment of The Scene, in which we talk about culture in the city, and we'll be speaking to Nikhil Barua, Roshnee, Kumar, and Vidhi, Kundan, Jain of the Humming Tree, a performance venue in Bangalore, and they're going to be organizing the Backdoors Festival on Feb 14th in Bombay. So stay tuned for The Scene.
Shunyavan, 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 Shunyavan.
$1 billion acquisition. Another copycat startup got formed.
No, the tech world in India is surely moving double the speed of this voiceover.
Tune in to Shunya One every Tuesday to catch us talking to the smartest people we know on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
The Scene.
So now on this episode, we have with us Nikhil Barua, who's the founder of the Humming Tree in Bangalore. It's a performance venue, and they're organizing the Backdoors Festival, music festival on Feb 14th in Bombay. And we also have Roshnee Kumar, who's the operations and key accounts person. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
And Vidhi Kundan Jain, who is the cultural and creative head. Long designations, guys.
We actually talked about Backdoors on our last episode when we spoke about the cultural events to look forward to in 2018. And, we talked about the lineup and how Prawn is super excited about it because Anderson Paak is one of her personal favorites. And
yeah, though I still haven't bought tickets, so I'm going to be watching out for Phase 3.
Should we let the users know that we've already been said you haven't bought tickets and that it's Valentine's Day and that people are going to leave at 10 and not watch Anderson Paak? So.
Those people don't count, like I said. And it's not just Anderson Paak, it's Anderson Paak and the Free Nationals, his band.
Yeah.
And, I was just watching his Tiny Desk concert. And, it's not just a hip-hop. I mean, he's not just a rapper. It's like a funk soul band, right? I mean, it's really exciting. But I think along with them, then we've got Wolf Alice, this British band, alternative rock band that had released one of the most critically acclaimed albums of last year. And we've also got Watsky. How do you pronounce his name? Watsky, right? This other rapper. And you want to reveal the fourth big name that you've got?
So we've got, I'll reveal the other names also. We've got Danny Goffey.
Uh-huh.
So Danny Goffey is also something which a lot of people don't have the connection with.
Which
is Supergrass. Which is Supergrass is like iconic British pop. Yeah. It's all right and all of that.
Yeah.
So we've got him on the lineup. And the final name which we'll announce is it's another UK band, TesseracT.
Mm-hmm.
It's progressive metal.
Yeah.
So I think we've covered all the genres there. We've got the singer-songwriters, we've got the metal, we've got
so the only people who were sort of left out were all the metalheads. So you've covered them too. And with the Indian lineup, you've got again you've sort of very diverse. It's Pratik Kuhad.
Yeah.
When Chai Met Toast, which is like a pop rock band. Then you've got Divine. Again, hip-hop represent. And a couple of other people, right?
Yeah, and we've added Mahesh Raghunandan.
He's a singer-songwriter.
He's a singer-songwriter.
From Bangalore, Blushing Satellite.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's been one of our local favorites from the time we saw him. And he's an incredible voice, incredible talent. So we're really happy we have him on the lineup as well.
And anybody else? That's it.
That's for
all.
That's 9
We're struggling as it is right now. So
that's pretty good for for one day. And but these are, I mean, if you look at the international acts, they're not your sort of typical, these are fairly sort of acts that only sort of hardcore indie people in India sort of follow. So how did you all sort of pick this? I mean, you guys have obviously, I mean, even when you look at most festivals, they're all kind of fairly well-known sort of chart-topping acts that people program. Whereas this is really, quite unusual.
I think Anderson Paak, in most people's eyes, is still fairly big. So I think he is a name that we're very proud of, but he's also a fairly safe name. Everyone else was just our way of saying, look, this is something that we need to bring in. As a venue where we've run for 4 years, I think our predominant problem has been that there just isn't enough happening. And it's the same thing that's been rehashed and your friends come for the show and someone talks about it. But if we're going to evolve, if we're going to make a difference, we need to change. We've moved the venue from being a music venue with a bar and a rooftop with a terrace where you serve food to just a music venue. And I feel that's the direction we moved to, an entire floor where all we are right now is a venue. And I feel that musically we need to... A live music gig is a live music gig. It's not a night out with your friends where you dress up and go and have a drink. It's a gig. You wear like sneakers, you go, you get sweaty and you watch it and that's it. There's nothing else. So even for Backdoors, that's what we want to imbibe. It's not a festival where you go to be seen, you're going to like tag yourself. It's purely you're just going to a festival, and we don't want it to be too big. We want to be fairly contained, but it's about going and seeing these 3-4 bands that you wouldn't have ever thought that you'd be able to see. And we're going to make sure that we're going to do it. And also push a lot of the Indian bands on these stages to give people a sense, because if you're going to get certain bands in, you also want them to experience a sense of what the Indian bands can do in the right setting. A lot of our Indian bands don't get put up on the right settings. I mean, Weekend is a great festival, and the Zero is great. And there's a lot of people trying to do the right things. But in the environment, I think, of Zero, which is very pure, and Weekender, which has cultivated that now, apart from that, you end up playing these big festivals, which are just kind of like you jump in there, it's standard brands, and you don't get that feeling of this is what the band's about. So for us, it's a situation of like, let's get some bands in from abroad that people would love to see, but probably wouldn't think they'd be able to see. And the Indian bands that we really want to push and put them on the same stage, and not necessarily open for the bigger bands. Next year, I love what Weekend is doing about putting Indian bands as the headliner. We'd love to do stages where we can have an Indian band headline as well. So just create a vibe which is just, again, it's as simple as just saying, this is a band we want to see. This is a band you want to see. We're going to make sure it's a great, like a well-produced festival. Just come and watch it. It's not.
But did you all do any research on sort of these are the bands that people are following here, or was this just people that you love?
Like Anderson Paak, for example. Like, what's the story behind that? And like, was it a challenge to get him down?
We worked on it for about 6-7 months to get him down. We went through different channels.
I mean, a lot of times these guys are like, "Oh, I didn't know we had so many fans in India." You know?
I think Anderson's got swag. He pretty much thinks he's well known everywhere, so I think that's fine. It was the same NPR Tiny Desk concert that we watched, and it was like, oh my god! Like, and it's the same thing. This transcends like a genre. It's not hip hop. There's soul. There's funk. There's everything else into it. So we had that, and then everyone, like every time we'd put up a post, we have this little thing in the Humming Tree, who do you want to see? And he kept coming up there. He kept coming on there. Wow. And we were kind of surprised, but then we realized he'd be a great booking. It ticks both boxes. Someone we really want and big enough. And everyone else, I think, has just been our personal, like Wolf Alice is my personal favorite band right now. So it's a booking of saying like, please can we just get you down here? And then the rest we'll see. I think Watsky is her personal favorite. So that's her booking.
From the whole spoken word scene where he started off from his college days and to now him doing music. He's also worked with Anderson Paak, so that's a great thing altogether.
He's been around for even longer, right?
Roshnee, do you have a personal favorite?
I think I'm leaning towards Wolf Alice though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, why is this called the Backdoors Festival?
That's actually
we can have a smart answer, a clever answer, or a nonsensical answer. Just throwing up names, and someone said Backdoors, and we all looked at each other. It's like, yeah, that works. And then
was it somewhere also like with the whole Patrick Watson thing, you know?
I guess so. We had bought Patrick Watson last year, and he has that song, you know,
Backyards, Adventures in Your Own Backyard.
In Your Own Backyard.
And I think also the idea of just what was it like? You want to go for a show that's just really simple and about the music, and it could probably be in your own backyard sort of a thing.
You feel at home.
Yeah.
So
cool. And what about the venue? Have you decided what it is? And you mentioned sort of like also this being limited capacity. So what kind of numbers are you looking at?
So last year we did, I think we did about 2,500 for Stephen Wilson, Patrick Watson and Jose Gonzalez.
That was in Bangalore, the first edition, right?
Yeah. And it's the same venue in Bangalore, in the Rananga Club. So we clear out the tennis courts and you have two stages next to each other, like opposite each other, and you go back to back. We're doing it again in the Rananga Club, and in Bombay we're doing Mehboob Studios.
Okay, and what's the challenge of putting up a gig in Bombay?
In terms of
as opposed to Bangalore, for example,
as in like a scale of this size,
Yeah.
or generally?
Yeah.
I mean,
generally.
I suppose you can answer that from both cities because it'd be nice to have a comparison. I know you guys also did Lucy Rose earlier this year, and that sort of had a bit of an issue, right? You had to sort of shift the venue at the last minute and stuff. So there's a fair bit of like red tape involved, I'm guessing.
No, actually, I think it's fairly okay.
Okay.
I think if you just do your due diligence, there's enough players in the game who've done it long enough that it's easy check boxes. So I think, luckily, and I think hopefully it doesn't change, red tape isn't too much of a factor in this. You just have to know the ways to play the game, and then it's quite easy. I think, again, the only factor which I think everyone faces in music is the sell, which there shouldn't be. It should be, we're programming something, you're a fan and come. But in India, I find we always have to sell anything we like, which is awful. Yeah. So I think that's the only thing, whether it's Bombay, whether it's Bangalore, it's always going to be just making sure the audience knows about the festival and trusts you enough to come for the festival.
Now, is this going to be, the usual Mehboob Studios gig in which you have like 5 food trucks and 3 bars?
We just came out for a meeting of that. We're going to definitely limit it, the food and thing. Again, it's the same feel. We'll have a bar. Obviously, we'll have a bar.
Bira is your sponsor.
Bira is our principal sponsor, so we'll definitely give them that. Yeah. But again, just to their internal credit, so even the conversation with Bira has been very fluid. They got on board not because of anything else. Yeah. They got on board because they love Anderson Paak. Yeah. And they really do want to do good things with hip-hop in the country.
They're trying to support hip-hop. They have
massively.
Free flow initiative that they've started.
Yeah, they've realized that their brand identity is that. So that's great. Firstly, for a brand to identify that very quickly. Yeah. And for them, it's hip-hop. So whether it's smaller events at our venue or whether it's a big festival, they want to associate with that genre. Yeah. Which is easy enough to pass on to them as well.
So, and are you all going to be doing like all the 3 studios at, or the 3 main ones that usually are booked out for events?
Yeah, we're doing stage 3, which is the biggest.
The big one,
that'll be the Bira stage with Anderson headlining. We'll have the garden area where we're going to have an Amnesty stage. Okay. And stage 1 where we'll have our stage, which will have Wolf Alice and TesseracT and Join Chime Toast.
Sorry, so the more rock stage. And Amnesty, you mentioned Amnesty, and this is an association, in support of Amnesty. Did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think like when we're doing the festival or like with everything that's usually been done, like I know right from the time when Nikhil started the venue, they've been doing this thing called Social Tuesdays where you have fundraisers. And all you have to do is come, eat and drink, and you're raising funds for a cause. So I think taking off from there, it just reached a point where we're doing something really big and you sit down and you say, conversations we keep having about losing faith in humanity, and then it comes to a point where you say, right now with doing Backdoors, you're going to probably have like 3,000, 4,000 people in a room listening to you. Should they just come, have a great gig and forget it the next day? Or do you amplify a cause or, use people and the right medium, like whether it's music or arts, there are always easier mediums to get to people. You can't sit down someone in a room and say, what do you think or what's your opinion on this or why do you support or not support this cause? But if you have someone who you probably admire or who is inspiring, you listen to them. And you're not going to change the world and make humanity better, but you'll start affecting people in ways where they probably think twice before they speak or, just are more conscious about what is happening, whether it's friends standing up for you or people being more open, like especially with the whole gender-based violence thing that's happening, whether it's the Me Too campaign or whether what's happened with the Golden Globes. Everyone is talking, and this is more than we've ever done so far to a cause that really, I think, personally affects everyone.
So will a part of the revenues go towards Amnesty?
So basically all profits from ticket sales, everything is going towards Amnesty and NGOs that are working for the cause.
Wow. So everyone buy tickets because all of that goes to Amnesty.
And Phase 3 tickets would be out by the time our podcast is available to hear. Right now, Phase 2 tickets are sold out.
Yeah, and you said the drawbacks of being in Mumbai. Mumbai is actually sold out way
for
before Bangalore.
Oh, okay.
Phase 2 did, so...
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah. And again, but how come Bombay? When we were thinking of doing another city, what made you come here?
It's Bangalore's always home base, so we're going to Bangalore, and then it becomes Pune, Bombay, or Delhi. Bombay is easier also logistically the fact that it's a 1.5 hour flight across. We know that there's a huge base that is there in Bombay. You can have the Pune crowd come in as well.
Yeah.
So it ticks that box off. I mean, next year we may look at it. We may look at going up to Delhi as well.
Okay.
But for now, Bombay and Delhi seem like the Bombay and Bangalore is the easier first step into another city.
Yeah. Also, we love Bombay. So
so we know a lot of people here, so it's easier
That's
that way.
That's good to know.
Well.
And I've also read somewhere that you were thinking of sort of doing something larger in Bombay. I mean, are you ever going to sort of think of maybe setting up here
as the Humming Tree?
Yeah.
I mean, these are conversations we've had for a couple of years. We're at this time where we're trying to define also as a venue who we are, and we just want to be performance driven. And also do a lot more of this. So a lot more tours like the Lucy Rose store. Bring that in, send a lot of our artists, take them on tour abroad as well. And Backdoors do it once a year, but we're also looking at doing other festivals as a one-off, maybe once every 2 years. So getting into the touring event side a lot, and having the venue go from like a 500 cap venue to maybe a 150, 200 cap venue, but it's all about just the performance.
But is that a challenge for you to focus on performance as opposed to performance and F&B?
Yeah, I mean, the revenue model doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work. But for us, it was doing it for 4 years, and we've done both, and we're just so miserable. Like, you're having a band you love and someone's ordering pizza across the bar and complaining. It just, like, there's too much. It's not like you make any money out of it in the first place. So if you're not making money and you're miserable, you might as well not make money and at least be happy.
But how do you get by?
So, I mean, the smaller you get, also your costs come down. So it is a situation of good programming, being smart about how you play the venue, who you get in, the kind of food. I mean, you can have a cafe, which is really nice and small, but you get a certain kind of crowd. So there'll definitely be a huge B element to it, which is the beverages and alcohol. But the food element you can cater down a little bit, and you should be able to be self-sufficient. But I think the problem is the minute you go big, the 90% of your work is dealing, and like she talked about faith in humanity. You know, like social media now, everyone's a critic, everyone's a reviewer. So 90% of your energy is...
Everyone's a food blogger, everyone has an opinion.
So you just waste so much time dealing with all of that. You don't have time for what you wanted to do. So
Right. Okay.
Cool. And so any other plans for the year that you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, it's very important, after February 17th, we all want to go on holiday for a very long time. That's the only immediate plan we have right now.
Holiday and hibernate. Holiday.
Yeah, holiday.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, everybody knows Valentine's Day 2018.
Please don't leave at 10 o'clock.
Is 10 o'clock. Yeah, don't leave at 10 o'clock for
Bring
your
date for the festival.
Yeah, I mean, don't take
your date.
You should
be selling roses and chocolate-covered hearts.
So that Anderson Paak will have some pretty sort of like, what do you call?
He's got
romantic
love vibes songs. In the air, for
sure. Tell him to tailor his set accordingly.
Dim the lights for the last track.
Yeah. Cool.
So thanks, guys, for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And we may not see you because you'll be busy doing other things, but we will be there
at the festival.
Okay.
So we'll look out for both of you that you've bought your ticket and you're not left past 10 o'clock. So.
Okay, so that's it for this episode, and we'll be back next week. For updates on city events, you can check out our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. We're the Daily Pao on all three. You can listen to the Paodcast on the IVM website, the IVM app, or your favorite podcasting platform.
There she stands, a podcast addict. Outside the bank, having travelled several miles to get in with other poor souls like her. The journey, though daunting for this youngling, will have some comfort because she has downloaded her favourite podcast. You can see more of her species on ivmpodcasts.com, your one-stop destination where you can check out the coolest Indian podcasts. Happy listening.